Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. My name is Future Nightmares, and today we're going to be looking at increasing your FPS and the highest quality you can possibly get for your system for DCS, because nobody likes really choppy gameplay. So I'm going to tell you guys what kind of settings you need to change and ways that you can do outside of DCS to increase your FPS. So I'm going to show you guys how to get buttery smooth gameplay like this. Also, I apologize for my voice because I am very sick. So for reference, this was the gameplay I was playing with before, because I totally didn't fuck up my own settings and move things around improperly and completely break my DCS, doing a full review of a rock without realizing it that was the problem, and then talking shit about the map and saying it was unoptimized when it was purely my fault, and then having to comment down below on my own video, pinning the comment and talking about how sorry I am and how it was my fuck up, and then, which means that you should totally go under that video, comment under that comment and telling me how much of an idiot I am. Make sure to do that. Which I totally also didn't spend an entire weekend uninstalling and reinstalling DCS and getting help from the actual developers of DCS while they were trying to figure out and diving deep in my hardware system to try to figure out what was going on and why I was getting such poor gameplay. Meanwhile, Russia was angry with Finland, and that just so happens to be where I live, because Finland was worried about Russians buying property near sensitive assets like military bases because they thought they were spying on them. And Finland was going to court to see what they could do about it. So what I could only imagine was Russians playing 5D chess, thought it was a good idea to start threatening Finland and start doing cyber attacks constantly, to where I had really bad internet and took forever to start downloading DCS. It took me 2 days to just download DCS because of this. Given Finland and Russia's history, Finland already knows how to handle the Russian bear, and what I can only imagine was a phone call like this.
Sinua tällä harjalla lyön perkeelti viekö, jos tuut tänne.
And just a few days later, Finland starts seizing Russian assets near military bases, and they just sell the assets and give the money to Ukraine. And what I can only imagine was the Russians and the Vatniks simultaneously Pikachuing facing that they couldn't believe that Finland would even do this after them constantly cyber attacking and threatening Finland. Seriously, go Finland. But I'm getting sidetracked. This video isn't about Ukraine, Finland, or Russia. This is a video about you getting high frame rates in DCS. So first and foremost, we'll start outside of DCS and open up Nvidia control panel. You want to make sure that you go to manage 3D settings and click on that, and then go to anisotropic filtering and make sure it's on application controlled. If it's not, make sure to left click on it, bring down the menu, and make sure you click on application controlled. And this is going to make sure that everything in DCS, when it comes to anisotropic filtering or any anti-aliasing, is going to make sure that it goes to the application of DCS, not through Nvidia control panel. Also make sure to do the same thing with anti-aliasing mode. Now this should help you even long before you start downloading DCS. Now when you download DCS, make sure you have an SSD or an M.2 drive, because this is going to help reduce frame rates and stuttering by a lot. This is actually what was causing my stuttering and frame rate issues, because I accidentally moved DCS to a hard drive. That was my main problem with the stuttering from the original clip that I showed you back at the beginning. Also, just to note that RAM is also going to be very helpful at increasing frame rates as well. So what you need to do is you need to have at least 16 gigabytes of RAM if you're going to be playing single player and not very heavy missions. If you're planning on playing heavy missions and multiplayer, you want anywhere between 32 to 64 gigabytes of RAM. So with all that out of the way, let's head off into DCS. So here we are loaded up into DCS. So what we're going to do is we're just going to load up into the settings menu, make sure that we are in the system part. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go from the left to the right and just go down and see what kind of system changes you need to make. We're going to start off with resolution cockpit displays. So I run at 1024, but at the default, I believe it's at 512 every frame. So if you're in VR, you want to just go 512. You're running flat screen 512 every frame or 1024. I run at 1024. I think it looks pretty good. This is just for the cockpit displays and the resolution. If you notice it's a little bit fuzzy, you might want to go a little bit higher. Anti-aliasing, I just go with MSAA with 4 times. I think that works perfectly fine for me. Depending on your system, if you have a weaker system, you might want to turn it off. But if you're playing VR, DLSS is pretty good, though I dealt with some ghosting issues while in VR, so if that's something that doesn't bother you, you can run that. It's pretty good, but I don't particularly like that. Textures, if you're running a pretty decent system like mine, high is pretty good. I also ran high in VR, but obviously if your system's a little bit weaker, you can run medium or low. I personally prefer high just because I think high looks the best and you're sitting in the cockpit the most, so I think you're going to get the most out of being high, in my opinion. Terrain textures, if you're running VR or a lower system, you can just have it at low, it's fine. I just think it looks pretty good at high. Shadows are pretty intensive on this game, so you might want to turn them off. It's going to turn flat shadows off and SSS off. Those are all part of shadows, so you're going to gain a lot of frames by turning shadows off. But again, I'm running flat screen and I have a pretty decent system, so I turn that on. So if you don't want that, make sure to turn those off or anything like that just to gain frame. So shadows off if you need to gain frame, basically. Visibility range is up next, I believe. Nope, I'm still going on about shadow stuff. I don't know what I'm trying to talk about. I'm re-recording this because I was coughing a lot. So again, I'm sick while recording this. I'm not sure what I was thinking there. But anyways, visibility range. So what you want to do is medium for VR settings or lower systems. High is pretty okay. I run it at ultra. It works fine for me at ultra. But mileage may vary depending on your system. And if you have a really good system, you can go all the way to extreme. But I'm running at 1080p. I think ultra is just fine. Most people run at ultra, so it's fine. Civilian traffic off. You always want that off. Clouds is depending upon your system. They're very taxing on a system, so you standard is perfectly fine in VR, or low is really fine for VR. But I leave it at ultra. Water at high for my system. But if you're running in VR, you want to go low because you want to gain as much frame rates if you're in VR. So I run it high because I'm on flat screen, but VR for low. I leave those two on. Even in VR, I just left those two on. But if your mileage may vary, you might want to turn those off. You might gain some frames. Lens effect. This is more personal taste. It doesn't really enhance anything besides just like what it looks like in the canopy. So you can turn those on or off. I personally have them on, and I think it looks great. But obviously, it is a pretty decent FPS hit, so might want to turn those off. Motion blur is pretty frame intensive, so with more planes around the area, you'll definitely notice a frame rate drop, so you want to turn those off. If you're dealing with frame rate drops, motion blur surprisingly will actually gain you frame rate. So if you're flying low at fast altitude, you might want to increase motion blur. I just have it at 1 because I think that's just fine. I have motion blur at high, set to 1. It looks great for me. But just increase it to whatever you feel is good for you and see what works for you. But it does actually increase frame rate in DCS, surprisingly. So mileage may vary with that, and try working with that. It might help you out. None of that I've never touched. Canopy reflections, volumetric lights, you definitely want to turn that off if you are wanting to gain frame rates. It's pretty taxing on frame rates. Next is clutter and grass. This is going to be all like CPU intensive stuff. So if you're noticing that your CPU is throttling, just turn that all the way down. If you are running in VR, definitely all down. Increase it up to 1,000. I think it looks pretty good. Even for my CPU, not throttling, looks pretty good. Same thing with forest visibility. You want to turn that down if you're in VR, or if you got a pretty low system. So turning that down will help you out a little bit. Same thing with forest detail factor. In VR, I was running at about 0.8 is when I would decrease it to. Mileage may vary with your system depending on what you have. So you might be able to increase it all the way to 1. You might be at 0.8 with VR, but that's typically where I was at. And lower systems obviously decrease that more. You need more. Same thing with scenery details factor. So preload status or preload radius. So increasing that is going to eat more RAM. So if you don't have that much RAM, you're going to want to decrease that. If you have a lot of RAM, you want to increase it. I have 64 gigabytes of RAM and I run it at 12,000. Works good for me. I could probably go all the way to max, but I was noticing some stuttering, so I decreased it down to 12,000. Good for me. Chimney density. Yeah, I just have that 0. Nobody really needs that. If you're running a higher system, you might want to turn that on just for scenery stuff, but I left that. Gamma, eternal field of view, I left. So LOD switch factor, I believe what that says. Again, I'm in a, yeah, it's LOD switch factor. So I have that increased to 2, but that's going to increase the details of things at distance. So that's going to be a huge frame rate killer. So you need, if you need to, decrease that to 1. I have it set to 2, but definitely decrease that to 1. Experiencing frame rate drops. Next, anisotropic filtering. Default is set to 4. You can increase it to 8, but I'm running flat screen, so 16 times is for me. VR, I always ran it at 4. You can also try it with off, but I think 16 times is pretty good. So terrain object shadows, they're going to be set at default, but if you're turning shadows off, they're going to already be off. So turn those off if you're experiencing frame rate problems. Rain droplets, have off. I might turn them on for myself because I'm getting some pretty decent frame rates right now. So I'm going to mess around with that later, but if you're experiencing frame rate problems, definitely turn that off. Also, I don't know why I'm singing on that for so long. I do have VSync on. You might want to try it. When I was experiencing some stuttering, I've noticed that with VSync on, it does stop the stuttering and smoothens things out for me. But, you know, give it a shot. If it works for you, it works. And if not, it doesn't. And if you're experiencing some problems with screen tearing, definitely turn on VSync. Full screen is a big one. You're going to want to turn full screen on because that's going to increase frame rate by a lot as well because it's not going to be windowed. Next, you want to go to controls. And go all the way down to this little bar down here, and you want to go to where it's going to say disable hot plug. Currently, I have it disabled, so it says enable hot plug, so it's all the way down at the bottom. So for you, when you click on it, it's going to say disable hot plug. You want to make sure you click on it and where it says enable hot plug. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but disabling it does increase frame rates. So, sorry, it increases frame rates. I think that's what it said. So yeah, that's all the settings you need for DCS and what you need to change if you want to increase frame rates. And those are my settings for my system. Anyways, my throat really hurts right now because I did way too much talking for this video. And of course, I am still sick while recording this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoy the holidays because this video will be up on the 24th. So anyways, enjoy the holidays and hopefully you guys start flying in DCS. Thank you. Bye.